to be sensory friendly in the area of processing movement or vestibular input and body awareness or proprioception. So vestibular is processing movement or our responses to gravity. So if we have an over-responsive vestibular system, that means too much information is coming in about movement. So we may feel an exaggerated sense of movement, and we may be very fearful of falling and avoid heights and avoid any kind of changes in ground level. It can cause gravitational insecurity. So for example, when we have a sinus infection and we have that overwhelming sense of like, whoa, dizzy, vertigo, when we move our head too fast or bend over, or stand up too fast, I think that can feel a little bit like that overload of movement sense when we have too much movement information coming in. So people who are over-responsive to vestibular input may avoid or be fearful of stairs, curbs, stages, risers, playgrounds. So we want to provide ramps or allow them to stay at ground level. The other thing is people might have motion sickness very easily. So they may avoid buses and van rides, or they may prefer to drive themselves or ride in front. Something we can do is provide weighted items. A weighted item can help bring about that neurological response of calm, so it can offset those other neurological responses of stress and anxiety and overload. So weighted items like a lap pad, a weighted neck wrap, a weighted toy, a weighted blanket can be very helpful for people that are experiencing an overload, especially a vestibular overload. So on the other side of the spectrum, we have an under-responsive to movement cues, under-responsive to vestibular information coming in. They need input. They're not registering vestibular or motion input well. Remember, it's like the garden hose where there's just a trickle of information coming through. When people have an under-responsive vestibular system, they may be seeking movement or oblivious to movement. Often they are craving and seeking movement. So we want to provide lots of movement breaks. One way we can do that is providing jobs within the service or in the classroom so that people can get up and help pass out Bibles or papers or different jobs that might require passing out the communion or the offering plates that would help them just be able to organically get up and move throughout the class or through the service. Another thing we can do is offer alternative seating. Office chairs can provide a little bit of a swivel or movement. Also, wiggle seats can be really helpful. This is a wiggle seat, and we want it so it's not blown up too much so that a person can sit on it and have a little bit of movement or a wiggle. And I love wiggle seats because they're very portable. They can be used in a pew, in a chair, on the floor. They can be taken to any place a person might need them and used in any type of seating. So a wiggle seat is really helpful for people that are needing that extra movement. A rocking chair or a glider can also be really helpful for extra movement. Now let's take a look at proprioception, or body awareness. And one way you can check your own body awareness is you reach your hands out like this and try to touch your nose like this. And I can touch my nose with my eyes closed because I have body awareness or proprioception. So if a person is not able to have that good body awareness, they're going to be very clumsy or awkward. And it's going to be very difficult to do things like pass a communion plate or pass the offering plate. And so we want to train our ushers and our deacons and people that are helping in those areas to be sensitive and be helpful to people that are struggling with those kinds of issues. People with proprioceptive issues may also have difficulty judging force and pressure. So they may accidentally break things like pencils and toys or crayons. They also may hug too hard or shake people's hands too firmly because they just can't judge that force and pressure. People with proprioceptive issues also seek out movement to stay grounded. And the reason that is whenever we're moving, we are getting input from our joints and muscles to know where our body is in space. So that movement and pressure, pushing and pulling gives us a sense of where we are and helps us to stay grounded. So a person that does not have those cues coming in is going to seek out movement and going to need a lot of pushing and pulling and heavy pressure. So we can help provide that again with a weighted item can really be helpful again for a person with proprioceptive needs. It would help them to be able to sit still longer and not seek out that movement. A person with proprioceptive issues may have such a hard time knowing where their body is in space that if they stand still or sit still too long, they literally might topple over. So people that are craving vestibular and proprioceptive input really do have a need to move. It's not just a preference or a want or a behavior. They actually need to move to stay grounded and get the input they are needing. Sometimes people that have proprioceptive issues will also flap and flicker their hands, and that can also give them that proprioceptive input they are needing. So we can also provide alternative seating. Things like the wiggle seat that we already talked about, and kick bands can be really helpful. These are very inexpensive. They're like a large rubber band. You put them around the bottom of a chair leg or a desk leg, and a person can kick their feet against them and get a lot of great stimulation and movement that way and provide that proprioceptive input they're needing. Firm pressure can be very helpful as well for a person with proprioceptive needs. So we can provide fidgets like a squeeze ball or like this loop that you can squeeze. Anything that's providing pressure, even pushing hands together, pulling hands apart, pushing down the top of the head, anything that's providing heavy pressure. Even things like moving chairs, carrying heavy books, erasing the board, cleaning the tabletops, any of that can provide that helpful pressure to a person that's seeking proprioceptive input. I'm Sharla, your friendly OT, and I'm so happy to consult with you with any needs you may have regarding your ministry events and making your church sensory friendly.